Good afternoon, Westwood, and welcome to the Wolverine Report, episode 45 in the new and beautiful Deerfield studio. Here, as always, Evan Cardimino, co-host, producer, Charlotte Lynch, technical director, and Evan, how about this spot, huh?
It's a nice new spot. We got some new lights. We got a fresh coat of paint. We got our table back. It feels good to be back.
Absolutely. Especially, I like the green lights too. Feeling extra Wolverine today.
Yeah, a little extra touch for the Wolverines.
And it is only going to get more Wolverine as we have a very special guest, someone who we've been excited to bring on for a while. And now with the studio back, it's only fitting to have him be the first one in the Deerfield studio here of the new Westwood Media Center headquarters. But a man that is a legend when it comes to coaching at Westwood High School, Westwood football. Was part of back-to-back Super Bowl championships. One as a assistant and a defensive coordinator, the other as a head coach and defensive coordinator as well. And more importantly, someone that turned a lot of boys into men and people who are very successful at what they're doing today. And we are absolutely delighted to welcome Coach Paul Hallion. Coach, how are you?
I'm very good, Morgan. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us, and more importantly, welcome back.
Well, it's been a while, and I want to thank you for that very, very gracious introduction. I appreciate that you feel that way.
Yeah. Well, it's a lot of people feel that way because as Evan knows, we don't stop talking about a lot of those games, a lot of those memories, and how important they were. And the proof is in the pudding. We brought so many guests back, so many athletes back, and that are super successful and at the tops of their careers. And there is a common denominator of how vital high school sports were for them, how vital it was to learn from their teammates, how to learn to be a good teammate, how to learn from coaches, take some criticism, get the positive out of that, but also how to set goals, achieve them, and continuing to raise that bar high. All of those, and to me, in my opinion, there's no better sport to really encapsulate that than the game of football. When you have sudden changes, there's going to be turnovers, there's going to be touchdowns given up, but the next play is the most important play.
Win the down, right?
Yes, and do your job.
Yeah.
And do your job. And Coach, what have you been up to? The last several years. You look fantastic. So at some point, we want to know what are the tips there. But what has been keeping you busy the last several years?
Well, 6 grandkids for a starter, and I've been playing a lot of golf.
There we go.
I as a former athlete, I really didn't like playing golf when I was younger because I didn't have enough time to play to get good at it. It might sound a little arrogant or conceited, but it's just going out I used to go out a couple of times a year for fundraisers or tournaments, and it's just more frustrating. So when I retired, my first time from teaching and coaching, I just started to play more. I started to coach myself a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I'm at a point right now that, it's fun golfing.
Yeah.
And the byproduct of that, I've said many times to my friends, and the chances of me picking up a phone and talking to you for a half an hour, Morgan, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you go out and golf, you spend 3 hours on the course.
Yeah.
During that time, I had my 50th high school reunion and literally met people from 50 years ago that I hadn't seen in 50 years that live, quasi near. And now I'm golfing with them, a couple of times a summer or whatever, and reconnecting, so that's what I've been doing, like leisure time, and I've also do all my yard work myself. Yeah. I stay busy. Good. I stay busy.
Jerry Callahan once said, show me a good golfer, I'll show you a bad father. So it just shows you were a good father. The reason why you didn't have time to play, but now you do. And, there's nothing better than playing a game, a sport where you are watching yourself getting better. And, when you put more work into it and see how far you can go with it, it's awesome.
It is. And, the thing about golf, too, if you're a recreational golfer like I am, it's me against the course.
Yeah.
I have some college friends that, they've golfed longer than I have. They're serious golfers. They want me to get a handicap so that when we play, we can bet.
Matches. They want to put some money on them.
And I said, no, I don't want to miss a putt.
Yeah.
and, lose sleep.
Yes.
And I said, when I was coaching football, I would win and I would lose sleep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all that intensity and stuff, that's not what I'm looking for out of golf.
Yeah.
I'm not looking for competition, maybe me against the course, friendly round, the first person, the loser buys the hot dog and the beer or something.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Coach, I understand you had polio growing up, overcame it. I remember, in high school you had a little bit of a limp, and every now and then when you had shorts, one of the legs was a little bit bigger than the other one. Like, talk about that experience, going through polio, and what was that like, and then coming out on top.
Well, it was I was born the end of 1953, so prior to the vaccine, I was one of the last people to get it.
Yeah.
When I had it actually in the lower legs, in the calves, and I was fortunate because when my mother brought me in, fortunately, first off, I was already walking at that time at about 10 or 11 months.
Yeah.
And my mother noticed I was walking different.
Yeah.
And so I guess that was a factor, not that they had a cure or anything. So they brought me in, I was diagnosed with it, and they weren't sure what the effects were going to be. So, basically the way it works is that polio attacks the nerves that go to a muscle.
Yeah.
So the nerves that go to my calf muscles mostly were attacked, and passed through my body, destroying some of the nerves, and but not all of them. Mm-hmm. And ironically, what happens is that when some of the nerves get destroyed, the remaining nerves pick up the slack. So this was explained to me by a doctor that I had nerves now firing more muscle fiber, and it actually helped me jump higher. My calf muscles were enormous. People used to always question, like, look at your calf muscles. I used to walk on my toes, and so after I was fortunate enough to have it go through my body and not cripple me, unlike others at that time. It actually, in some ways, helped me athletically a little bit.
Yeah.
And now what's happened is what was happening when you saw me in high school is it gets to a point that the muscles, the nerves that were picking up the slack of the muscles, they get to a point like when you're in 40s and 50s, like, okay, I had enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they give out.
Yeah.
And it's actually called post-polio syndrome.
Sure.
And so what will happen is like the muscles now will atrophy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm very lucky to be able to play sports, as much as I did growing up, and survive it. But
a savage guy beats Tingsboro, Archbishop Williams, and polio in Holliston. That's
Holliston,
there's no opponent that he hasn't given an L.
So, take us to the beginning, your beginnings. Where did you grow up? Tell us about your childhood and what got you involved in the game of football.
Well, product of Boston's public schools. I grew up in Rosendale, and was introduced to sports with the 10 boys in our neighborhood. It was one of those neighborhoods that you're probably more afraid of the neighbor yelling at you than your father or your mother yelling at you. And I know I'm gonna sound like an old timer. Come back before when the street lights come on, and driving our bikes all over the place. Street football, street hockey, Fallon Field area of Rosendale. So there was always enough kids to get a game going, and the age group would be probably like 5 years old too. So you'd have some kids that were 8 and some kids that were 12, and you'd play and you'd be like playing with the big kids and stuff. You had to learn quick. So that's really where the competitive part came in.
Sure. So, Coach, where did you go to high school? Because there's some legendary high schools, especially for sports back then. Boston Latin, but Don Bosco is one I hear a lot about.
Don Bosco. I actually went to Boston Technical, which was an exam school, and it was more an engineering type of a high school. I went to Latin for a couple of years, and then from there I went to. So the irony is, believe it or not, I went to Tech because they were better in football at that time. Yeah. And then my senior year, we lost to Tech. We lost to Latin, I mean. So I went to Latin first, but there were other things too. So we went to Boston Technical, and it was 1,500 kids,
Yeah.
1,500 boys in that school. And so, I played football and track and crew, but, even though I was playing basketball and hockey, not good enough.
Yeah.
They used to make the tournaments,
Sure.
So that was high school, and then from there I went to Fitchburg State.
Yeah. How prideful was the football back then, particularly with those teams, all very competitive? And what was your position that you played?
I was linebacker guard.
Yeah. Love it.
Linebacker guard.
Two-way guy.
Yeah, they were competitive. The city league teams were competitive. I mean, there were kids from your neighborhood on the other teams.
Yes.
It was,
Yeah.
it's quite a story. And, you would know, we used to, during the game, we'd be yelling things about each other's families over the line of scrimmage. I remember one time we were playing Latin. I knew the quarterback was also from Rosendale, and I was saying, saying, hey, Johnny, your mother Sue was calling you or something,
Yeah.
something like that. But the school, Boston Latin and BC High was in that league.
Sure.
Also, the city league
Yeah.
teams, and they were good teams. It was good football at that time.
Absolutely. And then ultimately went to Fitchburg. At Fitchburg, did you study education? Is that where you got a head start, for your career? Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I did. I had this thing. I always, believe it or not, I felt like I wanted to be a teacher.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I did. I
calling.
I can remember saying that when I was younger, believe it or not. And so I changed. Ironically, I changed my major about 3 times at Fitchburg. And then I basically, I wound up teaching high school health for most of my teaching career. And yet I took health and phys ed as a minor when I was at Fitchburg. So it's ironic the way that things work out. But I knew all along that I did want to get into teaching and coaching also. I was
Sure.
like the teams, the intramural teams that we had. Fitchburg was like a smaller school then. I did play club football, but intramurals were bigger than the college sports.
Yeah.
They had the fraternities playing against each other, and it was a big deal, intramurals. So, so I guess I kind of felt teaching and coaching.
A lot of coaches we talked to, there was a coach that really stuck out to them, someone that left an impression on them where they're like, that I had a really positive experience from learning from that person, and I'd like to potentially be a coach someday. Were there any coaches that stuck out for you that had a positive impact on you?
Yeah, my high school coaches, two of them in particular. They were, the head coach was an older. He'd been there for a while, nice guy. But, there was a couple, Billy DiLorenzo, Jack Farrell. One was the offensive coordinator, one the defensive coordinator. And they were younger, and, not bullies, but, taught you how to, be a man. Don't, if you made a mistake, then the first thing out of your mouth is, I made a mistake. You don't say, well, Morgan did this or Evan did this. No, you have to own it. So
take accountability.
Accountability, exactly.
Yeah. Football is one of those sports where, there's plenty of situations where everyone needs to be accountable. And, being able to take accountability right then and there allows you to move on quicker. But, I mean, so many life lessons, I feel like, and it's not easy. It's hard. The practices, the prep. If you're for championship level teams, the amount of film that you've watched over the years is probably second to none. But it's an amazing sport that I think fit nicely for your personality and your interests and obviously teaching, giving back, but also preparation. You were at Waltham High School for many years. When did you start there? Both as a teacher and as a football coach?
My first year teaching at Waltham, I believe, was in 1977.
Yeah.
Waltham High School. And I think it was the year after Freddie Smirlis went through there. And like 78 or 79, I started coaching a middle school football team and a middle school basketball team. Waltham used to have 3 middle schools.
Yeah.
With the 9th grade in it, so they were freshmen. They were freshman teams.
Yeah.
8th graders could play, but they were basically freshman teams. And so we played obviously for the city title with the other 2 schools. But I believe Newton at that time might have had as many as 5 middle schools with 9th graders in it.
Wow.
So we had we played each other, and then there might have been other games. So I was teaching actually industrial arts at Waltham High. Not vocational, but industrial arts. The 1 hour woodworking courses and general metals course and
Sure.
drafting. And so I coached freshman football for a couple of years and freshman basketball 1 year. And then I was asked to be a defensive back coach at the high school level when the ninth grade was still in the middle school. So I got moved up, I guess, probably about 81.
Yeah.
So how did you balance being a coach, a teacher, and a father early on?
That's a great question, Evan. It was hard. It got harder. Don't forget, I was living in Westwood, and my home games were in Waltham, so even my home games were away.
Yeah.
My wife Shelley, awesome job.
Yeah.
We did it almost with mirrors. She was working almost full time, a 3 to 12 shift in the hospital. So I get home, and then obviously during football season, she'd have 1 day off a week, and then we had fortunate enough to have babysitters in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
But it was tough. Getting up in the morning and then go teaching during the day, and coming home, putting the kids to bed. The three of them, baths.
Yeah.
Blow drying the hair, which I stunk at. It was, it'd be 8 o'clock at night, and I'm looking at my bed, and I'm saying, I got to at least watch a little TV or something.
Yeah.
It was hard, and it was actually, I probably coached Waltham till 92. 12 years, maybe 12, 13 years, and that's the last year that I was at Waltham, we lost to Brockton something like 32-30, and. I took it very hard.
Yeah.
I was like, I felt like I could have done more. They were a good team. They went to the Super Bowl.
Oh yeah.
They went to the Super Bowl. They were a good team, but that one we were talented that year also in Waltham, and I just said, I couldn't take it anymore. Feeling like I could have
did that
done
close, more. And even when it's the best season, there, and Brockton still has a big win. It's like it's tough.
Well, the thing about, I guess a lot of sports, but football is like there's no perfect.
No.
There's no perfect.
No, there isn't.
And I made a comment like I might lose sleep on a night that you won. And whether it was maybe I lost my temper at a kid, or maybe I didn't get a kid in a game, or maybe. I didn't remember something that I made a note of when I was watching it, whatever it was, coaches are harder on themselves. Coaches probably, I have more recollection of, we're going to have to edit this one. I have more recollection of losing 3 overtime games and 3 games 7-6 than some big wins, because you're hard on yourself. What could have I done on games that close?
Well, that just answers the question of, do you love winning or do you hate losing? And you hate losing more than you love winning, which is the only correct answer, because if you love winning, you're going to get complacent at some point. Right. You're going to think it comes easy. But if you hate losing, that feeling is scar tissue in you, and it's going to get you over the top of any, you're going to give that extra more in every game because you know what that feeling's like, and you never want to have that feeling again.
Exactly.
Talk a little bit about, and I don't mean to bring back bad memories of Brockton, but some amazing teams you guys played. You guys played against Brockton teams that were nationally ranked.
Yes.
We're talking about guys like Peter Marciano was on those teams.
They had 1 year five Division I scholarships.
A lot of guys to Iowa.
Peter went to Iowa.
George Millett.
Woody House was on that team.
Yes.
Donald Campbell was on that team. The Columbus kid was the
quarterback. Yeah.
And they had Millett, Regan. They had Regan, a 2-way lineman.
Yeah.
They were awesome.
Yeah.
They were awesome. They were a big school. I'm not making sure, but we had.
But they had a lot of respect for you guys, because when I talked to them, so the Hancocks, were the 81, 80, 81, 85 were the ones that kind of went through you. They had ones in the 70s. But they talk about the battles, and they talk about the brothers who were running backs. And how special they were, and how difficult they were to play against. But a unique kind of perspective, because you guys aren't in the same league. you guys aren't really actually close to each other, proximity wise,
Right.
which is kind of similar to us in Holliston, you
Right.
know. But how special were those matchups where non-league team, but each year both teams are gonna get into, you know, a slugfest?
It was something else.
Yeah.
First off, they were league games. There was a league.
So this is before the Big Three?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before they broke up.
Okay.
And he had himself to blame a little. Well, I probably shouldn't say that, but teams don't want to get killed by 50 points.
No.
And they don't want a quarterback throwing a pass when you're leading by 30, 40 points. But anyways, there was a league called the Suburban League.
Yes, that's what it was.
The
Okay.
Suburban League, and the Suburban League was Waltham, Newton, Brookline, the two Quincy's, and Brockton.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Weymouth came in at the end, but it was black and blue. It was a black and blue league, and it was good. And Brockton was our Thanksgiving Day game.
Yeah. And talk about, it was regular occurrence where you're playing against these teams that are going to play at Penn State, Iowa, Boston College. We don't see that really these days. Like, was the competition that much, more prepared for college football back then? What made them the athletes they were back then?
I wonder if just the mentality now of football in general.
Yeah.
My last year coaching, a friend of mine was head coach at Rivers.
Yeah.
And we had like 24 kids.
Wow. Yeah.
And the whole thing with the concussions and everything. Not only like Pop Warner teams. I mean, just remember what I told you. I'm sure what I told you about the three freshman teams at Waltham.
Yeah.
I'm sure you had very similar situations.
Totally,
and Brockton's and Brooklines. Those
Absolutely.
are big towns. The Quincy's.
Yeah.
Those were big towns. So, it was one time we had like those three freshman team. We had a sophomore team. We had a JV team and a varsity team.
Yeah. That's incredible.
So, and I'm sure that the level of play was high.
Enrollment was high, 100 plus kids, and the best athletes played football.
Right.
Because we talked to Bill Irvine, Bill from
Yes.
town, and he was in the first ever Westwood Thanksgiving game versus Holliston, 1975. And he's talking about these two guys on it was 1974, excuse me, and he was talking about two guys, 73, so 1973. So he was talking about these two guys on Holliston, both commits to Penn State. Like, it was incredible. Just what some of these kids would do, and we'll talk a little bit about one that went to UNH out of Bellingham. That was a special guy. You had to play defense or go up against defense-wise. But that experience ended up bringing you to Westwood. At what point did you consider looking at Westwood as a potential fit for football and ultimately becoming a coach at Westwood?
Well, when I first left Waltham, it was getting back to what Evan was saying. It just got to the point where, I felt like, I wasn't doing the job as well as I could when I gave you that example. But also at that point, the kids,
Sure.
I believe Lindsay was going into middle school. Casey was going into upper elementary. Maybe they had upper elementary. And Michael was going into elementary. So my three kids were all going into like a new school.
Sure.
And, you don't, you're not home for dinner
Yeah.
till Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So, so that was part of it.
Yeah.
So when I first left, the head coach at the time at Westwood, it wasn't Wolfinger, it was Scully, I think.
Yeah.
It was after Wolfinger.
Yeah.
He called me. He knew that I'd left.
You were a free agent.
Asked, and I said, no, I can't coach, because, I didn't want to make it look I left Waltham for Westwood for one thing, and also, the whole family thing.
Yeah.
And I knew Jimmy Von Yu from, he was from West Roxbury. I was from Rosendale. So about 4 years go by, and then Jimmy reached out to me.
Yeah.
And at that point, it was Lindsay's freshman year in high school. Things had leveled off a little bit. It was much easier coaching in my hometown.
Yeah.
With home games and stuff like that.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's basically how I started with Westwood.
So talk us through your first year coaching at Westwood. You started. Who was part of the staff? Who were some of the people part of that staff?
Pindell, Pizzo,
Yep.
Brad Pindell was there. Jimmy Vonyu was the head coach. Myself, and Jeepers. Was it only the three of us?
Yeah, there was a couple JV coaches, but varsity was.
Paul. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. There was one other.
Yeah.
And it was just four of us, and that was Brian Fermonti and Narcissos.
Narcissos.
Yeah.
Doug Collins, I think, was a quarterback.
Doug
He was
Collins,
like a junior then.
Was a quarterback, yeah.
But Carson Brennan, good running back.
Carson was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were a good team, 7-3.
Yeah.
You know, we lost a close one to Bellingham.
Memory over here. It's 7-3. Rifled it off like it was.
Yeah, I remember.
Like you wrote
I
the
remember
book.
that. I can remember when we came back after the Holliston game, which we won, which I think we played at Dedham High.
That was the following year.
It was the
In
following
the
year.
snow. Do you remember that?
Yeah, we had to go over and shovel up.
Yes.
Okay, so the Holliston game must have been at Holliston then?
I think the Holliston game. Yeah, it was at Holliston.
Yeah, freshman year, right?
Yeah,
It must have been at Holliston.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just remember, so went back and I remember Jim grabbed, on the whiteboard, you just grabbed marker and wrote 7-3.
Yeah.
I can remember that specifically.
You guys used to, you had the coach's office in the boys' locker room.
Right.
And in the off season, you used to almost put a depth chart like on the whiteboard, so people would kind of see where they were, and they're like, "I'm not starting." Like, was that done on purpose? In the off season for making sure guys were getting in the weight room. I think it might have been a Von U thing because
it could have been.
Yeah.
I remember that. And not critical at all, just different from Waltham to Westwood, the size of it and and competition.
Yeah.
I'll never forget my first year. There was a summer league, and I think it might have been at Bellingham. And I was out there like watching, not really coaching. In those days, I still think it was pretty stiff about like coaches getting involved with in the off season. And but I talked to Mike Narciso afterwards, and I said, after one game, and I said, so is this pretty much everybody? I mean, any other kids like away on vacation? I don't know. And Mike said to me, well, this is pretty much the starters.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I'm not knocking Mike at all, and it probably is because Westwood's a small school, and you know about who's coming up and stuff. But I can remember saying to somebody once, if we had a kid from Waltham that started as a sophomore and a junior, he would never say to a coach going into a senior year that I'm a starter.
No, you got every.
And again, it's not critical. It's just the difference of, what it's like when you have 100 kids on your team.
Championship mind, even if that's not the case, but a championship mindset is I got to earn it every year. I got to earn today, because if I have a bad practice, the person behind me is trying to take my job. So it is that kind of mentality of you got to earn it. You got to make sure you're every single day, every single thing you do. But it's also, I think, a really reflection on leadership. And you've said it best, where you need your best players to be your hardest working players if you want to have a winning culture.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And that was a culture that I think you brought in because you were the weight room guy. You and Pizzo, and you guys would be there, and you had an all-time line. You said you would open up the door and you'd say, all right, guys, the weights aren't going to lift themselves. So we would, go in there. But it was, I think the culture became, more guys were showing up. And more guys were wanted to be on the wall and have the most, the most, the bench press record, the squat record, the 40 record, and all that. Yeah. Your second year, do you remember the record of that year? Because that was the year where it culminated in the.
That was like no home field and stuff.
That was where it started.
A lot of distractions going on. I believe they were 6-4.
We had a home game in Medfield versus Medfield. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yes, I do, in the mud.
Yes. And then we played Bellingham at Norwood versus Ricky Santos.
Yep. Which,
by the way, what do you remember playing against a guy like him? For folks at home, one of the best quarterbacks ever to come through Massachusetts. Played at UNH, won the Walter Payton Award there as a quarterback, and now the head coach at UNH. But what was it like going up against a guy like him?
Challenging.
Yes.
The type of thing. Almost like a good team, a good play. You're not going to stop a good player from doing everything.
Yeah.
So what do you want to stop them doing? Like
Yes.
a good team.
Yeah.
You're not going to stop a good team completely on offense.
No.
Well, so what do you want to stop? You know, and you look at it that way there. But that was they had the handfuls that game. I remember that. You know,
It was cool. We went to overtime.
Went into overtime. Yep, and almost. I remember Pat Irvine got behind.
He had the
defense.
ball. My brother always jokes around.
Yeah,
He
it was
goes
rain, it was wet and
inexplicably
stuff,
drops the ball. But he
He was a good player.
he was
though,
a heck of a player.
Definitely.
Drafted baseball and exceptional wide receiver.
Yeah.
Ended up going to Hotchkiss. But he had a great game. But the ball slipped
Yeah,
out.
had all the catches you made before that was great. But overtime was tough. Dave Bernard took a shot in the end zone on overtime. Remember that?
Yeah. But I think those things certainly showed how close we were. You know, of being that team to be the next Bellingham, to beat Bellingham.
Right, trying to change. You got to change the mentality. You know, not that it was bad, but expect more.
And the thing is, I tell Evan and I do a lot of the calls, and I always bring up the year 2003 and 2004, saying you can go from a 6-5 record to winning a state championship the next year. It's possible. We did it, and it's something that is certainly teams can do, and it's not just new kids coming in, but it's like kind of how bad do you want it? It starts months in advance in the weight room and whatnot. But that 2003 season, did you have any idea of how high the ceiling could be for that year's team? Coming off of the year before, which was successful, but no TVL title. Didn't beat Bellingham. I think we did beat Holliston.
We had trouble with home games and stuff.
Yeah.
No, the thing is, that's when I started calling the defenses. I used to always think that, like, boy, if I ever had we could have microphones in the helmets when the kids are out there. Not that I would do anything illegal, but they have it now in pros, right? They have microphones up, but I felt that year I gave the kids a lot, and they could handle it.
Yeah.
Because Mullen and Keene and Bernard and you and the defensive backs. I mean, I put a lot in. I gave the defense a lot.
Yeah.
And and it was the right combination. The kids could handle it, and you gelled. Even though it was a mixture of juniors and seniors, sometimes that can be a problem.
Yeah.
Why is the junior starting over my friend the senior? But we didn't have that, so in order to win a state championship, you don't only need to have a great team. You need things to go your way.
Absolutely.
I mean, my last year coaching at Rivers, when we had just an abbreviated team, of those 24 kids, probably 6 of them were freshmen, and we used to kick the ball out of bounds, and punts and stuff, and we finished 4-4.
Yeah.
And I worked as hard at that team that year that I did to win Super Bowls, So you need things to go your way. And, a lot of things, fell into place,
Yeah.
It's interesting, too, about those seasons, 2003, 2004, is that you guys also didn't have a permanent home either. Westwood High School, the new one, was being built. I know Morgan's mentioned a lot to me, not having the permanent locker rooms, not having that. You were playing a lot of your games at Zavarian. So what was it like to also not really having a true home in coaching through those years for football?
Initially, difficult. And, initially started that first year that you talked about with Medfield and the mud and everything, as I think Morgan said earlier, maybe before we were on, it got to be a point that like we kind of took it as a mantle, like, okay, we can conquer this also, but it's very difficult. The thing is, you're very systematic. You don't like changes. Don't tell me like before the game that the cheerleaders are going to come out and put ribbons around the senior's neck. I don't want to hear that. I want the same thing. I want the same locker room. I want wait a minute. Why is the TV there when TV should be here, not there? So it was difficult getting consistency and a pattern was very important. Fortunately, we had the kids that could handle it, up until I think that at the very end, the third year, like when I was showing you these pictures, that, when we didn't even have, the wood shop,
Yeah.
And it was with Jimmy Vanieri. It was the year after you,
Yes,
right?
correct,
And
yeah.
that was the year we went to
The auxiliary
the
locker room,
auxiliary locker room with porta potties outside, and
yeah.
all. It was just, it's important to have it, and the fact that Evan, that we were able to plow through it, a tribute to the players, captains and the players.
I think you're right though. Like the first year was horrible because it was like random spots. At least Zavarian was some kind of consistency.
Mm-hmm.
However, it'd be like 10 a.m. game on Saturday. Sometimes we had a Thursday game at like 3:00. Just because Zavarian had their Friday, they would have
Something,
priority
right.
and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I feel like it was like an us against the world mentality. We liked being the road warriors, and embracing that and having a chip on our shoulder. And, it kind of brought us together, I feel like, because we had to imagine taking a bus to a home game.
Yeah.
We would hop on a bus for a home game. But you know what it also reminded me of? You have a good team when they have the mentality of they don't care where or what time. Let them know where it is. They're showing up and they're going to compete and want to win a game.
Right.
If it's on Mars at 2 a.m., they want to go out and win. And if,
Yeah,
you have
we'll win that game.
and if you have competitors like that, you got some savages,
Right.
who are ready to give everything they got. And it was not always like that way, but I think each week was just getting stronger and stronger
Right.
and stronger. And guys were seeing each other put themselves on the line for the team. And when you see someone, going downhill and making a play in the backfield and putting his body on the line, and you're like, okay, now I got to do my part, and then the other guys got to, it was infectious. But it was also preparation. You had us prepared more than any other team, any other coach in the Tri-Valley League. Talk about what your prep was like before games, when you would watch film on other D, because one thing that made you unique, you never used the same defense week after week. You would change it up a little bit to play chess when the other team was playing checkers.
Yeah, it's interesting that that you remember that, but yeah, obviously you have a base defense that everything stems off of, that you can move it. But the first thing before the prep is less team, more individual was one of the things I tried to, when you have a limited number of competitive people at one spot, to try to run your first offense against a second defense, or your first defense against a put together offense.
Yep.
It's hard to get competitive that way. So if you do individual, whether tackling drills, a good running back against good linebacker, or good receivers against good defensive backs, so the individual probably picked up. You probably remember that
Yes.
we started doing a lot more individual, and then as far as like the people that we competed against, that's definitely as far as the game films. I mean, for the teams we were going to compete against, that's definitely a carryover from Waltham. I'll never forget the first meeting team that we're having after. Obviously you don't scout for your exhibition games or your scrimmages, but we came in to prepare for the week, and on a big blackboard, literally a blackboard chalk, there was like 15 formations that the other team ran. All of the formations drawn and what plays they ran from this formation, and this is like the defensive coordinator at that time was going in there doing that, and like looking at it. So, that was how I was weaned. It's a far cry from freshman football when you just try to get a few plays in and have the kids understand the game,
Keep them healthy, and
and then what you would do is you would try to, as I said earlier, especially if it's a good team, you're not going to stop everything they do. Stop one thing that they want to do.
Yeah.
Make them, if they can beat you with a plan B, well, okay, then maybe they're better than you.
Yeah.
Or a plan C. And I can remember somebody saying, it might even have been you, because usually in preparation for a team, we put in a wrinkle into our base defense.
Yep.
Different defense, as you called it, which it was. We do
Yep.
something completely different that was run out from our regular base, whether it's a 4 front, 5 front, or 6 front. But we put something special in. And obviously, you don't want to start a game with the defense you think that can stop them. Start with your base.
Yes. Yeah.
And many times, our base defense was good enough. We had a lot of team speed, which could make up for a lot of errors. And I remember one time, about third or fourth game in, said, "Coach, we put in these defenses, and that we don't use them." And I said, "Well, first off, you don't start the game with it, because if you do, they can make adjustments during halftime." So being able to know what they run, certain formations, recognition.
And you were big on hiding it. So you were big on, like, if we're cover 3, start up and press man, work your way back, or kind of just changing it up. But you were big on cover 3, which was like a great defense for us, because you had Joe Fabiano over the top, who could literally cover ground like Ed Reed. He could start in the middle of the field, then jump on a pick, 40 yards off to the side. And you had linebackers that were really good, that got on the flat and could make the quarterback have to throw some loft on that, with good cornerbacks that could jump in, knowing that you had help over the top and help in front of you. So it was really, really successful, D. And the defensive backs are special to you for some reason. Before the games, you would give us gum.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? What was the mentality?
That goes back to Waltham too.
Yeah.
I think I had a baby backfield, believe it or not, 3 juniors and a sophomore.
Yeah.
So I told him, "You're little kids, so you can chew gum."
We used to be in the stretch line, and we'd be stretching and doing that, and he'd be coming around, and he would just hand something to put in your hand, and it was bazooka, bubble gum, and put it in and chewing on it, and it was just the defensive backs, and felt special because it was only us. Yeah, but he didn't miss a game, and it was always a time. And you'd usually have like a quick message, like so and so, whoever you're covering today and whatnot.
Yeah.
But that was really cool.
Coach, I want to switch gears because we're coming up on the Thanksgiving Day game, and you coached quite a few of those. So, how important was that game for you, and how meaningful was it to be a part of that tradition that Westwood and Holliston have on Thanksgiving?
It was awesome. Don't forget, I was coming off maybe 5 or 6 straight Thanksgiving Day games against Brockton. Mm-hmm. And I told you about how my last one there went, it's first off, it's great to end the season with a win. Whether you go on to a playoffs or anything like that, it's just nice to, you're saying goodbye to the seniors, and it's a great way to end it. So we had, I saw the other end, 8-2, 9-1,
mm-hmm.
And losing the last day of Thanksgiving.
And
even
if
in those early days too, they did some type of point system, so you could win and still be you could be undefeated and not.
I heard Natick had a couple undefeated seasons.
They didn't go. Yeah. I remember one of the Super Bowl games that I was at Gillette. The Natick kids had 22-0 says you're not number one until you beat Natick or something. They had a sign there. Yeah. But anyway, so I saw the other end, and it was good. I mean, I really embraced it. One thing about Westwood different from Waltham is it seemed more communal, maybe because it's a smaller community, so it seemed more communal. Myself growing up, I mean, we didn't have that. Most of our games were played at White Stadium without parents even watching. Yeah. You didn't have your local newspaper putting your name in the paper for making an interception in the Super Bowl or something like that. So it was fun to embrace it, and Pizzo got me right on board with that. I'll tell you. Yeah. Because he played. He went through it, Evan, as a player, and as a coach, and so. I really, and then, at first, the games really didn't, weren't decided in the league, and I know many times before that, the Holliston Westwood games were. But
6 years in a row, and in the 80s, yeah.
In the 80s, yeah, and I, didn't get it, but, I really embraced it. It was an aspect of my coaching career that I hadn't had prior.
And 2003, 2004, they meant something. It was basically win and you're in. The second time we needed a little help, and I'm going to mention that. I want to talk about that phone call when we're on the field celebrating when you got the news that Medfield had lost. But 2003 and 2004, beat Holliston, win the TVL, and back then to go to the playoffs, you had to win the league. So you win the league, you go on to the playoffs, and I believe there was, every team that won would go on to play in a playoff game, and then the winners from that would play in the state championship. So, and you must have loved these games because they were low-scoring games, defensive battles, and the conditions. I remember muddy fields. Grass, turf in the helmet you got to pick out and toss down. But let's talk about that first one. We had lost to Hopkinton. Hopkinton then ultimately lost to Medfield. So there was a 3-way tie there. Right. And ultimately the winner of, however it was stacked up for this game, it was win and go home on that game. And we went in there and got it done. And it was a surreal feeling because it had been a while since Westwood had won a TVL title, but also knowing...
This was your junior year, right?
Junior year, yeah. And knowing we're going to a playoff game. How fun did that feel, knowing we're playing some extra football, we just won a TVL title, and you know what? We're playing with house money.
Well, with all my experience, it was the same for me as it was for you.
Yes, yeah, we were doing it together.
Yeah, because I've never gone to the playoffs and stuff. Never been a big fan of the playoffs. With that, because there's been some great teams that don't make it.
Yes.
Like we said about Natick. And the people that took a team that's lost forever and they finished 6-4. That's a great season too.
Yeah.
But it was. So it was learning as I was going. I wasn't too wild about having only 4 days to prepare.
No.
Those 12 days for the preparing for the Holliston, that was like godsend for me.
So it was basically 4 days after Holliston, right back to work, and probably played the coldest game in Westwood High football history. Coach Pindell thinks so, and he's been around for a lot of games. Which you actually made one of the smartest decisions ever. You told us, guys, take the cleats off, put your sneakers on. Yeah. And it was one of the best things. And Evan actually has the game, so it's.
Really?
We'll post it, and you'll see we're wearing sneakers because the ground was frozen solid. It was basically cement. It was a great playoff win on the road, which then teed it up for a date in the state championship versus Tingsboro, a Tingsboro team that was terrific. They had a 2,000-yard rusher in J.J. Sullivan. And one of the benefits that we had from that was there was a bunch of snowstorms going on, which pushed the game into December. And do not give this man any extra time to game plan because he had enough time and some to figure out how we were going to take on this behemoth of a running back and their offense. And, talk a little bit about that preparation that you had going into the game and how we executed that game plan.
Yeah, it was just, films, and I can remember, maybe it's a little bit to our advantage, we were practicing inside the gym a little bit.
We were, yeah.
So, it was almost a little bit classroom-like,
Yes. Yeah.
When this person speak, I can remember Mike Vasquez is like, when this guy, when he does that, here comes the trap. As soon as he does that, what's his first step? He does, being able to really break down in form of individuals. So, to individually, I would think most teams aren't going to change their offense even if they get an extra week. Yeah, you go with what brung you there, right? So being able to just dissect and teach and literally teach, not coach, and having the kids that were able to comprehend it. Even at that, I can remember one of the first plays. Somebody got clipped, but Sullivan. He broke one.
Yeah, and they called it back. Yeah,
and that wasn't because we were extremely fast in the defensive backfield. Yeah, everybody's under a 4, probably everyone under like a 4.8 maybe or something, and we were extremely fast. But I think that was a little bit of a wake up call when you said, all year long I've been able to go at this speed and be able to run down a defensive back. Run down an offensive back.
He was big and fast.
Yeah, but I think you guys teamed up and you realized I got to put my Jets on next time.
We got a picture that Coach brought, and this was on the was this the Herald?
It was the Herald.
The Herald.
Yes, the day after.
And this is the epitome of what you were telling us, and kind of what our thing was all season. It was wrap up, gang tackle. First one, get in there, wrap up. Second one, get in there, try and get the ball on the ground, but get to the ball carrier. And good things happen when you have a couple guys not get an extra yard. He's not going to break free. But this picture was, I think, a great photo that encapsulated. We're looking at guys from all angles who found their way to JJ and put him on the ground, and that's what it took to put a 2,000-yard rusher, on the ground and to keep him at bay. I think the second half, he had like maybe less than 50 or 60 yards.
Yeah.
First half, he popped a couple.
Yeah,
but second half adjustments were unbelievable. I'll have to go back to the articles, but they were terrific adjustments.
It was like, like say, no one can tackle him. No one can tackle him.
No.
But just change, make him make cuts that he doesn't not expected to make. Yeah.
And coming to town after winning that game, and everyone was through the to the moon. Firefighters, the police. How cool was that?
Yeah.
Going through town and getting a
It was
nice ride in with the police escort and the fire department. Really, people on the side of the road cheering you on. It was pretty darn cool.
If you actually think about it, in the course of, what was that, 9 days?
Yeah.
Those three emotional wins.
Yeah. And I remember my hockey coach, Mike Welby's like, the season already had started for the winter season. And I think I missed a couple scrimmages. He goes, guys, when are you available? I go, well, I got a couple important games here, coach. So that was pretty cool.
So the following season, Coach Von Yu went on to become the AD at Oliver Ames, and you became the head coach. Talk us through the transition going from a coordinator to head coach for you in that season.
Basically following leads of people before me, what Jimmy did the year before. The two head coaches that I was underneath at Waltham, very, very organized, very detailed. Fortunately for me, we weren't in the day of electronic mediation. We were still like in VHS and VCR. Because I understand now, like with having huddle and stuff like that. I mean, I need somebody to walk me through, like to get to see a game film. But it helped, especially the fact that the season before that, I was defensive coordinator, so head coach of the defensive side of the ball, if you will. So it wasn't that big of an adjustment. We returned a lot of starters, or enough starters, to understand, what the way to be was, how to act, So, what I learned from head coaches, I learned from the people that were head coaches when I was assistant, and, maybe add a little bit of my flair to it, but, basically I've been fortunate enough to work underneath, very knowledgeable head coaches.
Coach, your opinion, we talk about this with a lot of different coaches to hear what their thoughts on leadership are, because leadership is so important to anything, whether it's life, work, sports. In your opinion, what makes for a good leader? What are those attributes that you think are important and vital for leadership?
Accountability.
Yeah.
Never never deflect any responsibility. Like one of the jokes, whether you remember, if I saw somebody not wearing their practice shirt, on first day of practice, after the weekend I said, "Where's your practice shirt?" And then my mother, what? My mother, no, I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
Probably brought it home to wash it, and the mother didn't get to. No.
Yeah.
So accountability. Lead by example. Be the hardest worker.
Yeah.
That's people always said that about Lindsay. Like that she was stayed first one in the gym, last one out. That whole mentality. No sense of entitlement.
Yeah.
People know that you're good. That's why you're captain or whatever. We don't need you to remind us that you're good or important. So, I mean, those things are very important. I think it's very important too. I mean, your junior year, the captains were great. And because your junior year, and athletically in some ways was more talented than the senior class.
Yeah.
And that it was a perfect mix.
They brought the nails. They were the hammer and the nails.
Right.
And
they did.
The junior class were the high flying offense.
Right. Finished carpenters, if you will. But they built the framework. Yep.
Yeah. It was a great yin yang
It was right people, right place, right time. You'll see
Yeah.
if it hasn't happened to you more than once in your life, it will again.
We knew too that there was something special.
Yeah.
And I think that's when people just said, "Hey, we want to win." Everyone put their personal kind of goals aside and said, "Whatever it takes to win," which was, really, really a cool learning process of, being a part of something that's bigger than yourself. And everyone having the same goal. No,
Right.
all those other goals. I want this many touchdowns. I want to win every single game. I want to win a TVL. I want to win a state championship, and I trust this guy and his game plan of how we get there.
I don't know if you remember. Not going to use any names. A fight about socks in the wood shop. 2 kids didn't start. So what's this? You arguing about socks?
I do remember that
prior
actually.
to a game.
Yeah, because what typically would happen is, and we didn't have a locker room, so like it would be pretty common you're missing something.
Right.
So then if someone was missing someone would probably take it from someone else.
Right.
And then it's like, it was not good.
Yeah.
But accountability.
The team's bigger than you.
Yes.
The team's bigger than you.
Yeah.
You mentioned, when we talk about leadership, your daughter, Lindsay, did you have, she was the leading scorer for Westwood basketball. She went on to play at Harvard. From a young age, could you see that in her, or did she really start to kind of develop later on and now she's head coach at Needham? Any advice you've given to her entering coaching?
You know what? If I wasn't a stage father with Lindsay, maybe a lot peripherally, she was always hard on herself, which most good athletes are good in anything. Good writers. Good. Anybody's good in their job. They're hard on themselves. So, she just I would help her. When she asked. But at an early age, if she was going to do it, she wanted to be good at it. Kind of like me with golf, I guess.
Yeah.
There was talk one time, maybe her junior year. Yeah, wow, she ever played lacrosse, man. She came on like a deer, and and she was a little hesitant. It worked out, wouldn't have been,
Good soccer player
they
too.
were, soccer, but they were already knocking at her door a little bit with basketball.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, maybe being around it. She used to come with me when I was playing pickup basketball. Her and the other children that would be shooting at actually in the Deerfield.
Yeah.
In the Deerfield school, we were playing on Friday nights, and they had the little side hoops and stuff. But just always support, but never if you want to get better, get out and do some foul shots. Didn't need to with her, and she's always been her own person. And she knew that if she wanted to do something, she wanted to be good at it, as good as she could be.
Yeah. Coach, you have 3 amazing kids, and Lindsay is someone we've had on the podcast, someone we admire as a leader, as someone who is a historical figure here in Westwood High School sports history. She's the leading point scorer, boys or girls, and what she's done after the game is incredible. What she did at Harvard, and I think just as impressive as the points and all that is the adversity she faced with injuries and, working hard and the work she did to get back to being the player she was. It wasn't just the PT. Kathy Delaney Smith was talking to us saying she had a notebook and asking, where do you like the pass? When I throw a pass to you, where do you want to receive it? And doing small things like that. As a father, and you look back at putting her, at the end of the driveway on the bus stop for her first day of kindergarten, and looking at her today as a mom, how proud are you of everything that she's done and the impact she's left, particularly, here in the Westwood community when it comes to Westwood athletics?
Well, very proud of her accomplishments, but just as, if not more proud of the way she handled herself.
Yeah.
Humble.
Yeah.
Not condescending. She'll single out see the worst person in a basketball clinic and treat them just like they're the best person in the basketball clinic, give them the same attention and everything. And I'm fortunate that way. I mean, my daughter Casey, my son Michael, they're good human beings.
Yes.
And I think if you're a good human being, other human beings can sense it.
It's most important.
It is. I think we have an innate ability, innate ability to sense other people. You know,
Yeah.
are they genuine? Are they fake? Are
Yeah.
is the intention real or not?
Yeah.
You know, and so you know, I'm very lucky that way with all of them. But you know, people recognize excellence, but they don't. The way you carry yourself through the excellence
Yeah.
is just as important as
Yeah.
being excellent.
Yeah, it's funny. She was on the podcast. We're like, "You're one of the best athletes ever to come through Westwood." She goes, "Really? Thank you." You know, it was like very humble. It's like, you know, some people you say that to, they're like, "Yeah, you know, she was, you know, it was like Bobby Orr. You know, Bobby Orr very humble like that too.
Yes.
I've heard stories of people going up to him and saying, "You're the greatest hockey player ever," and he's like, "Oh, thank you, I appreciate that." You know, it was pretty cool. But congrats, Lindsay, the new Needham girls basketball head coach, and she's going to be a heck of a coach there, you know, and living in the community too. So just like Dad, you know,
Yeah.
coaching for the town you're in and raising your kids, pretty darn cool. Want to take it back to that Thanksgiving game, my senior year, your first year as head coach, and we needed to win that game. And we also needed some help, which we got help from Dover Sherborne beating Medfield.
Mm-hmm.
And we win the game, and we're unsure of if we're going to go to the playoffs or not because we needed that help. And I think Carl Fogel was there and gets a phone call on the field saying, Medfield lost, we're in. And I distinctly remember, I think you and Coach Pindell hugging each other. And I remember also Mike Lynch covering, he had like that clip and put it on like, you know, the Thanksgiving segment.
Yeah.
But do you remember that game and us waiting for that phone call and ultimately getting that phone call to know we're in the playoffs?
Yeah, I did. First off, the league was very good that year.
It was. There's some
I
great
mean,
teams.
you know,
Yeah.
The league was very good. I mean, Medfield was good that year.
Holliston.
Holliston was
Holliston
good, and
every
Dover
year.
Sherborne
Yeah.
was very good that year.
Andrew Dare at quarterback, great quarterback.
Yeah. So I mean, and I think you know, had it gone other ways, I still think the Tri Valley would have come home with that championship.
Oh, absolutely.
We know it was, even if it wasn't us.
Yeah.
So the league was extremely good that year, and I remember what happened was I was saying that. You know, we're not going to collect the equipment today.
Yes.
Remember,
That was always
go to Thanksgiving
Oh.
and stuff, and then you can, you know, come in tomorrow,
Yeah.
Friday, the day, you know, say goodbye and turn your equipment in, and then, you
Yeah.
know, I think Mr. Bowman, no, you're not going to
No,
need to
not
turn
today.
the equipment in. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
I remember
One of, and the kids will, anyone that makes it to like an Elite Eight, Final Four, one of the best feelings is not just the win, but knowing that we have more time. We have more time. It's almost like life, you know.
Time together.
You know, when you know, like, oh, you know, I got some more time. You know, I have a new lease on life. Like, you have that appreciation of, even if it's like 3 more days of till practice till the next game. Like, those practices are very surreal, where you're actually there and taking it all in. You're obviously focused in you know, making sure you're getting all the repetitions and also the mental reps. But you do take a second to just know this may be our last time, you know, hopefully not, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure it's not, but going to enjoy that. Ultimately play Cohasset again. Sorry, Cohasset, 2 years in a row, knocked them out of the playoffs. This one was a little warmer at Curry. And then we had a date with Archbishop Williams, which was a very impressive team. And I don't know if you remember this, but back in the day, the MIA used to do like a breakfast with the teams that were in the state championship. So you would sit at that same table with the team that you were playing in the state championship. So you picked us up. It was you and Coach Pindell picked up Ryan Murphy, myself, and Joe Masha. We went to Franklin, and we're sitting at the same table with Archbishop Williams. And I'm looking at the running back, who I didn't think was the running back. I thought it was the D lineman, their center, who was half the size of him, and then one of their D linemen. Do you remember those that breakfast, you know, and that type of thing that they used to do?
Honestly,
No,
I was in La La Land.
Yeah.
You know what I
you
mean?
were already
You
in
know,
prep mode. Yeah.
I mean, you just bringing it up now brought back the memory a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, I was.
It was an interesting thing because you're literally sitting at each table. It's the coaches and the captains, and you have to sit at the same table with the team that you are literally going to go, you know, try and beat the crap out of, you know, 4 days. And Brockton's at the next table with, it was Brockton and Everett. Brockton actually upset Everett that year.
Yeah.
Richard Johnson had like a 96-yard touchdown. But we're sitting there, and it was, I don't think anyone said a word to anyone. You know, it was casualties, hello, you know, and then we saw each other 4 or 5 days later. And that was probably the best team we played all year. Like what a team they were. They had like the Notre Dame style uniforms, the gold helmets and whatnot. When you watched film, how impressed were you with them, and what was kind of your initial assessment of them before we kicked off with them? Yeah.
Their strength was our weakness, size.
Yeah. Size.
Big, tough. I mean, I know there'll be a million people who will tell you, speed beats size.
Yeah.
But not
to a certain
not
point.
Always.
No.
Not always in football either. Yeah. Obviously, try to neutralize their line was really what I was thinking about. Yeah. We're not going to beat them with pass rushes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Try to if they're better, if we can just whether we're submarining.
Yeah.
Diving into the hole, whatever.
Yeah.
Keep I think we played a lot of 6-man front.
You did,
to keep the linemen off of Whetstone.
Yeah.
We had about 1 million tackles.
And get downhill. Game. And you mentioned that submarine, but Joe Masha had a big play on 4th down.
He did,
get the fullback right in the backfield. Crucial.
They were in the red zone.
Yeah.
They were in the red zone.
We got the ball back.
He submarined through and he got his hand in and tripped up the fullback. Yeah.
And Evan and I are at a lot of games, and we see Mike run into Mike Mao, and he mentions every now and then one of his favorite photos of all time is the picture of you giving me an earful on the sidelines, and it was deservedly so. It was we were watching a lot of film, and they came out, and they were a run-heavy team. They had this 260-pound running back. I believe his last name was Mahoney, and he's since passed on. Rest in peace. I think he was in the Army, and tough kid. Mm-hmm. We're watching so much game film, and it was run, and then pass every now and then. So I'm thinking, run. They do run, and then second play of the game, whoop, pass, and I'm up there, with thinking a run's coming, play action, wide open the end zone. I come off the field, and he laid into me, and it was important because that was the relationship you had with the players, is you were like a father where you could lay into us. We didn't take it personal. We knew, but it was a reminder of accountability and a reminder of, there's nothing we can do about what just happened. So we got to focus on the next play in that. But Mike Mao has that picture, and it's a great picture.
Yeah,
and
I have it also. But that being said, I'm sure what I was saying was not about the mistake.
Yeah.
It was, I probably was saying something to the effect, that's not your tackle.
Yeah.
That's not your tackle until he gets by the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
But it was good coaching. You very emotional player, made you the great player that you were. And, first they ran the kid, got a few yards or something, and they ran the same action.
Yeah.
And then if you look at the game film, even the wide receiver comes off the ball like half speed. Looking and
selling it.
They sold it. It was good coaching and good play. And the thing, like I said, is probably all right, forget about it. It's not your tackle. And so what's your first responsibility? And we know what happened after that, right? No more mistakes. So
it's a great photo, but it was also, I mean, that game itself was back and forth and like just surreal. Some of those plays, the offensive guys, like Laham, Fabiano, the games that those guys had, the games that, Whetstone had, just like guys bringing out their games and getting it done when the lights were the brightest, and being able to come away with the win there. Probably one of the most rewarding, in my opinion. I really liked the 2003 win, but the 2004 was going back to back. There's nothing like that.
It was, there was a lot of contributors in that game.
Yeah.
We were rotating people in on the defensive line that really didn't play a lot during the year.
Yeah. Taylor Regan.
Made some big
Tom
plays.
Cooney.
Yeah. Yep. So
Mike DeSaro was getting in outside linebacker as well. And Mark Zarther, we talked about this on the episode we did with him. He was playing with a torn ACL.
Yeah.
And he
would special brace.
Yeah, the special brace, and once a game you could hear him in immense pain, and that's when he knew he reached the threshold. Yeah. But I mean, what a accomplishment that was.
We were putting him in the A gap.
Yes, he would just shoot right through the middle. Incredible, just an incredible spirit. Out of him. Of those games, is there one that is your favorite? when you look back on your Super Bowls, where do those rank in terms of favorite memories coaching?
No, I would have to say no. That bittersweet. When you win the Super Bowl, like we were just saying, and time's over.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just the time that you have with somebody. It comes to the ending. But it's hard to. It's hard. There's been so many games. I mean, I had one Super Bowl fan too, and that was like crazy. That was overtime. You know. But I'm just blessed, and I had, I was able. I did the job that I was born to do. I think teaching and coaching, and I had a lot of great players from both school systems. So
that's what makes you a successful coach. Is you enjoy the ride, you enjoy all the different the different components that make coaching, and the championships are great, but all that work that you put in had to feel incredibly rewarding. And seeing it's like golf. I mean, we're going to bring it back to golf, but where your golf game is today is far different than it was when you were just playing once, twice, 3 times a year. So I'm sure part of you appreciates, the different time and reps you've put in to get to where your game is today.
Yeah, it is, and it's when you see some of the people that you've been teaching or coaching, exercise some of the philosophies that you tried to say.
Yeah.
I mean, it was you one time, and I forget where it was, but there was a bad call, and and I've never had a 15-yarder.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coaching, freshman JVs, whatever, and it was like there was a bad call or something, and I was saying, I started to say not swearing or anything, but I started to say something to the ref, and you said something like, "Coach, remember what you told us?"
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah. Because
and that was like,
you also taught us that there's in the history of bad calls, there's never been a ref that's turned it around.
Right.
Said, you know what, you make a good point. I'm going to change that. But you were like us. You're an emotional guy, and I'd be remiss not to talk about the years after. So you coached up until 2011, I think 2010.
2012,
talk about some of those teams. You had some good players that came through, and I think you also had some TVL. You won a TVL or two after as well.
I think we tied one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we had some very good players. We had some. I can remember one with 7-4. Oh geez, coach, bad year, 7-4.
Yeah,
oh,
right.
Not really,
That's
because we really weren't that strong this year, the Thanksgiving thing with Holliston carried on a couple of times, when they needed the win, and we had some good teams, and they can't all be Super Bowls, and I've always been of win your league, win the last game of the year if you're lucky enough to go out with a win. It's good for you. It's good. It's a good, win your league if you can. But I really find it a little bit ironic when there was a point when the MIA would basically say, well, if somebody plays half of a game in a varsity game, they can't play in a JV game. It was a way to protect a player from being played too much.
Yeah.
But then, obviously when it came down to like playoffs and the gate that they have at the playoffs, you play 3 games in 9 days.
I know.
And it's
Don't get me
the
started.
thing with Natick, it's nice. Kids deserve the playoffs. I know a lot of kids, I'm glad that they did win some Super Bowls, so it doesn't sound like sour grapes. But, finish the season, let the kids go play hockey or basketball. Yeah. We don't need a champion of the world.
It does make me laugh. When you mentioned the JV, playing half a JV game and then varsity, do you remember the trips to the Vineyard? And it would be like a 10 a.m. Dismissal. They would dismiss us from school at 10 a.m., hop on the bus, go all the way to like Falmouth, then hop on the ferry and play on a Friday night, and then come back, and there was JV kids that would play like a full JV game and then play, some varsity. And those are classic.
Right,
we
played the JV at 3 in the afternoon, right?
Yes.
Oh,
and those are some classic memories.
And we won that game. I remember that.
And there was a guy, Rocco Ruggiero, who was a great Westwood athlete, who was he was a JV coach, one of Brad's friends. He tore his ACL in the JV game, throwing the ball on the sideline to the ref. And it's like, oh no, is he going to Martha's Vineyard Hospital? Like, he might have to spend overnight while we're heading home. I've seen him years later, and he has a good chuckle about that. But those are some fun memories, those trips and the non-league games and whatnot. Coach, when you look back on your time coaching in Westwood, what are some of those memories that come to mind for you, from your career that you look back on, with some good memories?
Well, the first probably was coaching Lindsay's friends.
Yeah.
Kids that I knew, since Lindsay was in
Bernard,
at the Shan,
Gene,
Mullen, all those
yeah.
kids, they were. I used to see them like at birthday parties and stuff in middle school long before I saw them on the football field. That's great. And that same thing when Michael was playing, coaching his friends was fun.
Yeah.
The Thanksgiving, like Evan said, the Thanksgiving Day thing that I never experienced myself as a player.
Yeah.
To see the whole thing happening in the town.
Yeah.
Because even when it was happening in Waltham a little bit, it wasn't my town.
Yeah.
Like I said, Waltham was still in the way again. So the Thanksgiving, was really special.
Yeah.
So yes, coaching in the town, seeing the kids in the town. Even like in the summertime, whatever, doing something outside, and there's like 3 or 4 like wise guy middle school kids doing something, and like, oh, well, there's a high school coach, it's like,
Yeah.
that's right, somebody's always watching, it takes a village to raise a kid, I guess, so.
There's something special about doing it with the W on the jersey and on the jacket, and representing the town. And I think that's what makes the Thanksgiving game unique, is it's a rivalry that is predated us 50 years prior. And it's people a lot of people who are part of this fraternity, but more so being proud about being from Westwood, and representing Westwood, and giving everything you got to come out on top and make Westwood W in the win column there. So, but Coach, thank you so much for coming on and talking shop with us. This was a lot of fun, and always pleasure seeing you. And obviously a person who's been very important to me, in my life, and always thankful to everything you did for me as a coach, but more so now as a friend. So appreciate it, and really appreciate you coming on.
I enjoyed it very much. Can you believe it's been 20 years?
Yeah.
Like smoke through a keyhole.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, we just blinked, and here we are. But folks, thank you for tuning in. Episode 45 of the Wolverine Report. Looking forward to seeing you all on the next one.